Good evening, my name is Arlene Herson. The name of the show is Getting to Know You, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Tonight we're going to get to know a man who might be described as a treasure of talent. He sings, he dances, he acts, he starred on Broadway, he won a Tony Award, and he consistently performs to sold-out audiences across the country. Truly sensational, whether appearing on stage, screen, or television, a man of exceptional talent. He's Robert Goulet, and let's get to know him. Welcome.
Well, thank you for all those nice things. My goodness.
Well, I mean them. I especially mean them because this is not the first time I've interviewed you. It's a treat to be able to interview you again. We did a show once before, and you really are one of my favorite guests.
Yeah, that's good.
Right. Okay, but let's get to know a little background. I just want to take you back because you've been singing actually since you were a child. When you have an exceptional talent like yours, you really notice it right away, I think, kind of early on. Did you know way back then that someday you would sing professionally?
Isn't that funny, Arlene? Because I'm in the throes now, the process of writing a semi-autobiographical book. When I gather with friends throughout the years, stories about other people in this business and politicians I have met, some of them are rather humorous, and quite often someone would say, "Hey, write a book about that." And I say, "Sure, sure." Finally, after many years, I said, why not? So I put down, I guess, maybe 50 pages so far. But in so doing, one must give forth some sort of history of yourself, of oneself. And so therefore, I found that I was thinking about just that. It seems that when I was a little boy, at family gatherings, my father used to sing and act. And my aunts and uncles used to perform playing the violin, playing the piano, singing, telling stories. And I recall, and they reminded me of this, my mother did, saying, "Why can't I sing?" And they said, "Well, of course." And I was like 4 or 5 years old. I sang, and they gave me the applause, and it frightened me. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that center of attention so much. I'd rather be alone in my room. When next at other family gatherings, I could see them preparing for that moment at every family gathering they had, everyone performing, I would leave. And I always left, took long walks. That's how I collected my first frog. Jumped out of a puddle in the rain. And my father said, when I came back, he said, "Where were you? We wanted you to sing." And I said, "No. Well, do it for us now." I said, No, not now." And I walked away. On his deathbed, I was 11 years old. My father said, "God gave you a voice. It would be a sin to waste that talent." And so I knew from that moment on that I would somehow or other use my voice. Several years later in Edmonton, Alberta, where we moved to, my mother and sister and I went for my first skating endeavor with all the kids. I was, 13. They skate when they're 2 years old. I had skated 5 times before on the frozen pond behind the mill with my sister's skates. And so I got on, and I felt I did fairly well around the rink, crossing the right leg over the left, but I didn't know how to stop. And so I crashed into the boards. They were in hysterics. The following Saturday, when they went skating, I took my first singing lesson, so I've been singing ever since.
Okay. Your father died. You mentioned how important he was to you, but he died when you were 11.
Yeah.
But I gather that he was really the motivating force behind your singing.
I suppose he was, yes, because I did sing. The nuns once grabbed me by the hair and said, "You're going to sing?" And I said, "No way." And they said, "Yes, you are." And I learned "Lead, Kindly Light." And I sang it at a church hall gathering on a Saturday night. And my father was very near death at that time. And he never had that much time to sit down and really be pals with me. We never had any long discussions about anything. He was rather ill. But he came down from the balcony. He was going off to work. He was working as a night watchman at that time. That's all he could do. He had a tear in his eye, and he said, "Thank you, my son, that was lovely," and walked away. Well, holy mackerel. I was in tears too, but I could see what it did to him. And so it sort of stayed with me, you know.
Yeah. When you sang in the choir, I heard that you didn't like your voice so much, that you didn't like the sounds that you heard, and that you were trying to change it.
Oh, I was always trying to do Larry Parks doing Al Jolson, you know, and I would try to make it a very nasal, twangy kind of a sound. And I guess my voice had just changed or something. First singing lessons I had were from a French-Canadian tenor, Jean Le Tourneau. And he sang "ah" all the time. And so therefore I learned to sing "ah," which is not me. I received a scholarship to the Conservatory of Music in Toronto. studied there with a man who told jokes for the first 15 minutes and sang with me for the next 15 minutes of my half-hour lesson twice a week. So he never heard me sing. I would sit in the coffee shop and ask the other guys, what are you doing? And they said, well, you've got to support, you've got to yawn, you've got to use your whole body. I didn't know about that. This teacher could not tell me. He didn't know. He had a wobble on him like this. I would ask him questions upon leaving the lesson, and he would say, oh yeah, try that, try that. So one day I said, the heck with this. I left him and went to Dr. Vinci, who was a dermatologist who was teaching singing at the conservatory. Passed away since, God rest his soul. This other teacher, Papa Lambert, when I would meet him in the hall, I would say, morning, Papa, afternoon. He would go, and walk away. I insulted him. In the meantime, he was ruining my life. I studied with this other man, Dr. Vinci. I think it was like 4 months. No singing. No, Madame Rubelev, who played the piano for him, out, get a cup of coffee. I would be with him. 4 months, he lost his temper with me twice. He'd never lost his temper with anybody else but me. Finally, on the last lesson, I said, Dr. Vinci, I'm not getting this. I know what you're trying to say, but it's not sinking in. Do me a favor. Sing to me the way you think I sound. Sing to me then the way you think I should sound. He said, okay. You go, ha, ha, ha. I want you to go, ha, ha, ha. I said, is that it? He said, yeah. I said, thank you. I never had another lesson.
Terrific.
What was the question?
Well, we'll get back to it after this break.
Okay.
Take a break right now.
Thank you.
We're here. We're in Atlantic City at Resorts International Casino Hotel. We're speaking with Robert Goulet, and we'll be right back after these messages. We're back. We're with my guest, Robert Goulet. We're here at Resorts International Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Just to go back for a minute, because you had mentioned you received a scholarship at the Conservatory of Music to study opera, actually, I believe.
Well, I to study singing, but I received another scholarship to the opera school when I got there.
Is it true that you left high school in the middle of your senior year to take a job as a radio announcer?
Yes.
Did you ever graduate high school?
No. I was... I never had to study in my life. I was gifted by the Lord, and therefore I skipped the 5th grade. My average was always 87%, when I don't know what they call that in A's, pluses, or H's. I never really had to study. Everything came so quickly to me. When I was in high school, I was in charge of all the school lits, the big productions. I was the president of the drama club. I did the school radio announcing. I played on the football team. I was the vice president of the school. I did other work outside of the school. I was always busy, busy, busy. One teacher, Father Daly, who liked me, I liked him, because I was late coming back to school one year. I didn't get in on the ground floor for geometry. And when it doesn't sink in right away, there were 2 weeks ahead of me. He worked with me overtime on geometry. I'm not a mathematician. That's what accountants are for, I guess. Come Easter papers, he went through the class. No girls in the class, by the way, in these Catholic schools. If I had had one girl, I'd be a lawyer today, running for office now that Trudeau is leaving the Canadian prime ministership. But I didn't have to show off, so therefore I didn't bother to study as much as I should have. He gave forth with all the grades at the end of the Easter tests. And he said, and I knew it was my paper he had last in his hand, and I thought I did a pretty good job with his class. He said, I've never given this mark to anyone before, but for signing his name correctly, I give Mr. Goulet 2%. Everybody started to laugh. I took my books, went up to the front of the class, picked my papers, thank you, Father, and walked out. My stepfather, whom I never had that much respect for intellectually, tried to get me to go back. I wouldn't. I was a stubborn kid. I didn't need high school. I was going into another kind of endeavor, which is this business, and so therefore I didn't need the diploma. I'm an avid reader now. I read everything I can possibly garner. And so therefore I'm not an idiot, but I don't have anything to do with mathematics. But I left high school and then went to radio announcing after that.
Right, okay, well, this father did us a great big favor, I think. Okay, so you did get a job as a radio announcer, but that's not really what you wanted to do. What you wanted to do was perform. You wanted to be in show business. Now, originally you came to New York, you had an apartment on 34th Street and Lexington Avenue.
Oh, when I was struggling, BC, before Camelot,
right,
yes.
Yeah, okay, what was that like during that time? Was that a difficult time?
Oh, sure, it was difficult. I went to a lot of auditions, and they said, next, the usual routine. And I believe I mentioned somewhere where one Christmas I sold stationery at Gimbel's. Gimbel's or Macy's, one of the two. and to make a couple of bucks. You know, I didn't have any money. Finally, I did some summer stock and left New York. That was a sojourn of about 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
Okay, and I understand your apartment was not exactly luxurious.
Oh, heck no. We had 2 cots, this fellow and myself, and 2 little rooms, you know, and I think the loo was down the hall, and a couple of windows that overlooked like 3 feet of space to the windows in the other apartment building, and garbage down below where the cats patrolled all night long. It was rather delightful way to go to sleep.
Terrific way to start in New York. We're going to take a commercial break because we know it didn't stay that way, and we're going to find out what happened from then on. Okay. We're here at Resorts International Hotel in Atlantic City. We're speaking with Robert Goulet. We'll be right back after these messages, so please don't go away. We're back with my very special guest, Robert Goulet. We're here at Resorts International Casino and Hotel in Atlantic City. Okay, before the break we were talking about what your life was like when you were starting out in show business, and you had mentioned Camelot. Now, was Camelot the turning point for you in your career?
Well, obviously, yes, because before that time I was doing all of my work in Canada, except for a few sojourns in Warren, Ohio. I did some summer stock down there with John Kenley. But Camelot was the opening door for me for American audiences, of course. That and the Ed Sullivan Show.
Right, which is the first time that I think Americans saw you on American television.
Yes, that's right, yes.
Is it a fact that you almost didn't take the role of Lancelot in Camelot because of involvements that you had had in Canada?
I had been given a week's vacation, which is something I very seldom took or had. And I went by myself to Bermuda and had a wonderful time there. Got a call from some man called Abe Newborn from New York, and I said, "Who's this?" And he said, "Somebody gave me your name, and I'm calling you up. Can you come down to New York and audition?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." "Well, see if you can." And he set up a date for me to audition for Lerner and Loewe and the late Moss Hart. And they had it set up for a Monday. And I got back there, and I had a weekly television show, network show at the time. Monday was my day off. I was also doing a stage production. And Don Hudson, the director of Wayne and Schuster Show, was directing that stage production. The one full day he had with me was Monday. And I said, "Don, they want me to audition." I said, "I know I can't make it. I'll just tell them I can't." And he said, "Bob," and he called me Bob, "go." And I said, "Go? Where, you need me." He says, "I'll get by without you. Go." Okay, Don. I went. Luggage was messed up at the airport. I had blue jeans and a T-shirt. Rehearsed with some guy I'd never met before for the piano. In came Lerner and Loewe and Hart. Hart said, "Prepared for action," when he saw my dress. Sang a few songs. Loewe said, "Do you speak in French?" And I said, "Certainement." That's all I said. So they talked to this man who was not my agent, from the Baum Newborn agency. And he took me to the side and he said, "Okay, kid, $750 a week for the first 9 months, $900 a week for the next 9 months, and $1,000 a week for the last 6 months. I said, "I'll do it for nothing." He said, "Shut up." So he got 10% of that. Yeah.
Terrific. Okay, and since then, your career has skyrocketed. And you have won a Tony Award, actually not for that role, but for your next Broadway play.
For The Happy Time, yes.
You've also performed in nightclubs and theaters throughout the country. And what you do when you're on stage, what you do is live. You have to be on all the time. What happens when you're not feeling so great or you have a personal problem? You have to go out and perform.
I must say that, knock on something, I don't believe for not feeling well physically that I ever missed a performance. Last month, we had 5 one-nighters in 6 days. That is, from Houston to 3 places in Florida to the Catskills. In 6 days, 5 performances traveling. My drummer and I had 102 fever all that time. We both performed every performance. Wow. So, you know, thank the Lord, as long as the voice is not affected, you can still go out and do it. And if you're not feeling too well, say something went wrong up in your head, use it on stage. Those lyrics can make a different meaning depending on how you feel.
Oh, that's right. And you have said that the lyrics are very important to you.
Most important.
And therefore, you can use it.
I never sing a phrase the same way twice. There's always something a little different. Once in a while, if it's an up-tempo tune, okay, you use that because the band is coming in with a blast on the trumpets, so you use that to sing it that way, the same way. But a ballad, when you're thinking, what do you want to? What are you saying when you're thinking and saying these words, singing these words, and that can change. Yeah. Very minutely, so that an audience may not know the difference, but it makes it real and honest for you every time you do it. Mm-hmm. which is intriguing, you know.
Yeah, okay, this is going too fast. We
What
have to take
happened?
another
Another break?
Another break, and then we'll
My
come
goodness
right back.
gracious.
Okay, we're here at Resorts International Casino Hotel. We're with Robert Goulet. Please stay there because we'll be right back in just a minute. We're back. We're with my very special guest, Robert Goulet. We're here in Atlantic City at Resorts International Hotel. We had mentioned at the very beginning of the show, as a matter of fact, you mentioned your autobiography. You also mentioned, which I hate to just pass over, that your first frog. And I know I didn't bring it up because you said, I know you have a collection of frogs from all over the world. But in writing your autobiography, I'm just curious, are you going to include the story of what happened to your tuxedo pants in Australia?
I guess I will. You know, I have not written anything about that yet.
But I know the story, but will you tell it?
Well, I went through a period in life, we all go through certain periods, right, where I didn't want to wear shorts. And I felt comfortable. And I was on stage, and in the middle of the performance, I will do it here as well, I go into the audience and sing a few songs and talk to the people. I saw a lady who was sitting right there by the steps as I came into the audience, who had lost her mink stole. It was on the floor. And people have been walking around and gosh knows what down there. Instead of taking the 2 steps to get into the audience with my portable microphone, I took both of them at once, a large step to pick up her coat, still singing, and hand it to her. As I bent down to pick up her coat, I heard a thunderclap. And I said, what in blazes, to myself, and I'm singing, was that? Still singing, handing her this, I felt, and from stem to stern, I was gone. In no shorts, and I'm in the audience. And I yelled out to my man, David, at the time, David! And he came to the wings. I said, pants! So we're in the hotel. He had to get up to the top floor of the hotel, get up there, didn't have the key. Had to come back down, get the key, go back up again. In the meantime, I'm in the audience. So I put a towel behind me that sort of hung down. And everybody was laughing. They didn't know. They just thought it was split. As I came up to the other side of the stage to walk up on the stage, I couldn't walk up, you know, like that. I heard a lady say, what's wrong with him? We've seen split pants before. Of course, they had, well, I hopped up like a kangaroo, left the stage for 5 minutes, changed pants, and continued. But what a strange feeling. I now am wearing shorts.
Oh, right. Good. That was going to be my
Oh, it was, huh? Okay.
Right. Okay. You also,
Commercial break, then we'll show her.
you also write poetry, and I hear that you're writing a book now on poetry. Is that so?
Well, I have a whole pile of things that Vera, my wife, has collected over the years that I used to throw in drawers somewhere. And I have a book this size, and I think that maybe someday I still haven't got the courage to show it to anybody. Some of it is not bad, some of it is lousy. But the ones that are not bad, perhaps it might be to, maybe someone else would like to read it. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I've heard some of your poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Thank you.
You mentioned Vera before. She is the woman that you're married to right now. Can you tell us a little bit about the woman who is lucky enough to get Robert Goulet to the altar?
Well, I think I'm the one that's lucky. This lady I knew from every so often I'd go back to England to do some television work there. And she was working in PR at the time. And a couple of, well, when was it now? 1980, she came back into the United States to visit with Sammy Davis, a friend of hers. And I was on my boat, my yacht, and got a call saying, I'm in town. I said, come on over. She came over and tasted my crock pot. I was living by myself, and I made a crock pot beginning of the week, and I'd eat that for the rest of the week. 1 meat, 1 fish. Good stuff. I mean, I put everything in there, you know. She had a taste of it, and she's an excellent cook. And she said, Robert, could I make something for you tomorrow? And I said, yeah, sure, if you want. I mean, how could she not like my stuff? I've not made it since, by the way. The next day I saw some luggage on board the boat, and she's been with me ever since.
Okay.
She is the light of my life. She writes poetry as well.
Oh, terrific, and travels with you.
She travels with me, yes.
And now, is she supportive? You are currently now in the process of stopping smoking. What's that like? Is that difficult for you?
Well, it's 3.5 days since I had my last cigarette, up to over 3 packs a day. I knew in my head that it was foolish and stupid, but it wasn't affecting my singing voice, so therefore it's a habit you're in, you know. Get up in the morning, have a cigarette. Before you know it, you're emptying the ashtrays. A lot of that junk going inside of you, and I would see people, women in supermarkets, you know, with cigarettes dangling. I didn't like that at all. And so last Monday night, working with some stuff at the piano with my conductor, Larry White, the voice was a little strange. I'm getting over a cold. I said, well, I'll stop for an hour, 2 hours. So I stopped, and I said, why don't you try 3 hours, kid? And now it's 3.5 days, and I am like this. I have a cigar now and then. You don't inhale cigars, you know. But I'm, what is it, detoxifying from nicotine?
Right. Okay.
And this morning I had 2 cups of last night's coffee and a Coke. So I've got caffeine inside me. No nicotine, lots of caffeine means going to be a strange performance.
Okay, oh, it's going to be a great performance. You know what that's like. This went much too fast. I still.
We're going to do it again.
Okay, you promise?
I promise.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for
Thank you,
being a
Arlene.
guest on my show. I really enjoyed having
My
you
pleasure.
again. Okay. I hope that you enjoyed getting to know Robert Goulet. I know that I certainly have, and that you'll join us again next week. Meantime, good night. It's been a pleasure getting to know you.